Good morning, everybody. It's Carpo. It's about 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. And, God, I get up early. And it's funny how I come out here to make a video within like 20 minutes. Get my shower, get my coffee. And it's rare that I do that, actually. I usually wait until at least a few hours that I've been up and I've got myself collected. But since I make videos stoned half the time, how much worse could it be in the morning? No, I wanted to clarify something that somebody brought up in a video I made yesterday. Now, I made a video the other day where I mentioned the term, accept everything, reject nothing. And then one of my subs, a guy named Refried Bean Dip, he made a comment on that and asked if I could specify it more. And then so I made a video for him, which just posted last night, where I clarify this idea. Now I went to watch he asked on a video he made yesterday about this, and he talked about a story about these horses, where, a farmer gained a few horses. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but you can check it out yourself. And somebody said, "Oh, we're so glad for you," and he said, "Well, who knows what's good and what's bad?" Then his son breaks his leg on the horse. And then the guy comes back and he says, "Yeah, who knows what's good and what's bad?" Then the army comes and the kid doesn't have to go into the war because he broke his leg on the new horse. There's all these little stories like this. I love them. I love these little, parables, if you will, and they put a perspective on things. Now, another sub made a comment on that video that I made last night about, he said how the Muslim Brotherhood, the assassins had said that do what you will. I can't remember the term, but nothing is rejected, nothing is wrong. And that really got me thinking about this other point on this that I forgot to cover, is people utilizing this idea for personal power and gain. It's rampant along, every group of people, folks who utilize the idea of, let's say, there's two ways to look at seeing things positively. If one person sees something and says that's evil, another person could come along and say that's not evil, it is what it is because of how it's providing for something. I mean, it's some part of the system, right? But another person might take it and know that it's an evil thing, know that it's a bad thing, and take it and say, oh, well, it is what it is. It must assist something, and use it because they know that's the only way they can gain their power or wealth. Now, doing as you please, as Manly always put it, Manly Hall, in almost every one of his lectures he says that people just want to do as they please. And it's so true. And we can't break away from that. People do want to do what they want. They don't want to be told what they can and can't do. They don't want to be told if they're right and wrong. And when you do confront some people on issues, they go ballistic about it. Well, so what it is it's accept everything, reject nothing, but that has to be based on a principle of awareness and education. A person who has no education at all on life, and I'm not talking about book smarts here, I'm talking about a person who is not wise to the world around them. A person cannot even know how to read and be very, very intelligent. Okay, a very, very smart person. I guess intelligence is usually related to book smarts, but we won't even get into the details, semantics here. A person can be very wise and not know how to write or read. And this is because each person bases wisdom on their life and their life experience. So if you've grown up around greedy, selfish people all your life, and that's all you know, and you try to embrace everything, then you're going to embrace things that you shouldn't be embracing, only because you're predisposed to believe those things are okay. So, usually, as humans, we want to do what we want because it helps to further our cause. And all I can say is that we need to see if it's furthering the cause of humanity as a whole, each action we take. Each person is wrapped up in their own little world. An example I was thinking of is when, you might know one person who always comments the same thing on YouTube videos, or all they talk about is, let's say, Bigfoot as an example, since I know no one who talks about Bigfoot, and I won't be picking anybody out or anything. person, every time you make a video, let's say, they say, oh yeah, that must be Bigfoot, that must be Bigfoot. And everybody's sitting here going, oh God, what a douche. Rolling their eyes. It's like Bigfoot didn't create crop circle. Bigfoot didn't do this, but the person's obsessed with Bigfoot. That's their life. That's what they're involved in, and that's what they've been studying. It's not for any one of us to tell them that they're wrong. And in the same sense, if a person is very, very, let's say a person who's very, very wise, let's say an old man comes to you who is an old Tao Buddhist who's been through many different levels of life and experience and awareness, and he tells you that there is no evil, that evil is just a misconception caused by ignorance and stupidity. A person might believe that person because he's wise, he's old, and they could take it to heart. Now, if a little, let's say a 20-year-old kid comes up and tells somebody that there's no such thing as evil, and they tell it to a person who's twice their age who is a religious person, the person's going to look at that kid and say, well, you're too young, you don't know what you're talking about, one day you'll grow up and you'll see that there is evil in the world. But we're basing that all on age. Just because the old man's had his experience in his cave, in his world, in his Buddhist life, does not mean that he's any more capable than you are in your Western mindset. This person may have never come across some of the things that we have in our lives, may have never had to deal with some of the situations. In fact, I think that the Western world may be much better equipped to handle acceptance of things as they are than many other cultures. I know people think that ancient cultures had it made because they had all their awareness, because they I know that there are a lot of people who believe that there was these ancient cultures where everything was perfect and everyone had inherent knowledge, everyone just knew how to do things and worked as a group and everything was great and dandy. The reality is that that's not how it was. That's never been how it was. That's just my opinion, but there's always conflict that will arise. There's always going to be conniving, sneaking, stealing, hatred, and especially people doing as they please because they want to fulfill their own personal desires before they die. That right there is the root of our biggest problem, is people trying to fulfill their personal desires. So, to get to the root of what I wanted to say here, it's that you can have everything you want in life. The trick is to make everything you want beneficial for the greater good of everyone. To stop wanting and desiring things that make you personally, selfishly happy. In that way, your mind will start to work where it wants to reach out to other things. You will program your mind to start looking for the greater good in things. And it comes down to that, back to that story about the horses. It would be kind of like someone winning the lottery would be a perfect parable. And the person comes to visit them, and they're like, man, you're a millionaire, this is great. And they say, well, it could be good, it could be bad. And it's so true, because money has destroyed so many lives. Yet, people who don't have money think that that's what's going to make them happy. And I'm not one to tell anybody if money will make them happy or not. All I can go by is what I've seen in the world, which is that money makes people temporarily happy. Just like going on a roller coaster, or having a beer, anything else. You get temporarily happy, and then you wake up next morning with that hangover, and you're like, damn, why did I do it? And by the nighttime, you do it again. And that's how we fool ourselves into thinking that we're going to gain this ultimate happiness where everything's going to be perfect. We're not going to have any conflicts, and it's just not reality. As long as people keep fighting against the reality that life is suffering, then they will continue to suffer. See, the Buddhist philosophy that life is suffering doesn't mean that you're suffering all the time. It means that there's a lot of suffering in the world, and that you have to embrace it and attach yourself to it and let it go. Because it is what it is. And when you're fighting against the flow, you're not getting anything done. In other words, standing behind your computer typing about how there's starving people in the world is not helping the starving people of the world. Get off your damn computer. Go out and work in a soup kitchen. Do something local. And I'm not saying that I do, and that I do all these things that are, that I should be doing. I'm just saying for those who want to complain, put forth an effort. I've stopped complaining about things. I have a lot of things that used to annoy me. A lot of different groups of people, ways of thinking. People would say some of the dumbest things that would just irritate me when I was younger. Nowadays, it takes a lot to piss me off, because I've accepted that any person who wants to say anything, no matter how harsh they want to me, no matter how negative they are, I just roll my eyes at it. I mean, I'm with me. I'm me. You are you. You are going to be with you no matter what. It doesn't matter what your husband or wife says, or what your mom or dad says, or your brother, or your cousin, your best friends. Ultimately, you are with you, and you die with you alone. And people don't, it sounds harsh, and it is harsh, but we all die alone. And no matter how many people are standing around you, ultimately, you go wherever you go as your independent spirit that has experienced its own life. And then it's up to each one of us to make sure that our life is fulfilled as much as possible. And to tell you the truth, the one thing that I've taken to heart the most about living properly is that I've observed too many elders on their deathbed, and I've read countless, stories about what they say while they're dying, and the things that are important. Not only the ones that I've read about, the ones I've seen, that I've been there. The look in their eyes, the look of an old person who's dying, that look of, I'm sorry, or I wish I would have done this, or I wish I wouldn't have been so worried about money. We can all use that, because that's something that we all have, this yearning. And so by accepting things for what they are, realizing that, no, your neighbor may be rich and you're not. Your neighbor drives a Mercedes, you drive a beat up old fucking Volkswagen. Just deal with it. There's nothing you can do about it. If your desires were strong enough to have that kind of money, you would have it. But don't envy a person that's rich just because they're rich. Feel sorry for them, because in the long run, that money goes nowhere with you. The truly rich person has a rich soul where you can strip them down naked. You can throw them out of their house, make them live in a cave, and they'll be happy. And to tell you the truth, there's only one thing in this world that I value that's material, and that's my family. And I don't even consider them material. That's obviously not a material thing, but they're physical matter. They're physical matter that's around me, and that if I was separated from, that it would probably devastate me. But beyond that, do it up, world. Do what you will. Throw shit at me. Knock me down. It doesn't matter. I'll get right back up again. You can cut off my arm, cut off my leg, poke out my eyes. I've already made the decision that whatever happens to me in my life, I'm going to embrace it. And that gives me more strength than I could ever attain from any external source in humanity, was what I mean. This external source that I do derive that from is the all-collective humanity, spirit, whatever people want to call it. I don't have a God. I don't have a belief system. I just live and utilize the parts of life that help everyone, and use my common sense. And if that's wrong, then that's wrong. But I'm doing the best I can, and I think we all are. So, namaste, everybody. Have a great Monday. It's a Monday today, for me anyway. Peace.